Hey friend, this is going to be a quick series, a quick crash course on regular expressions, or I just call it RegEx a lot of times. A really great site I love is regex101.com, and that's what I'm going to be using here. I was working on a different tutorial for a programming language, AutoHotkey, and I was thinking I need to do regex because that's something I really wish I had known about earlier. And I thought, well, probably the best way to learn regex is to just watch some examples and talk through it, and maybe explore some of the pitfalls I ran into early on. And so that's what this is, and I'm going to keep, whenever I find a new regex job that's kind of making me scratch my head or just working through it, I'm going to try and record it and add this to the series, just so if you don't know anything about regex, it's going to be awesome for you. If you already know a lot about regex, but maybe you just deal with the same problem over and over and you want to see something new, maybe we can find something new as well together. But one thing about when do you want to use regex? Well, regex is kind of good for pattern matching, essentially. Early on, with some of my programming tools, I was getting these strings, maybe something like this. This is maybe what you might see in some HTML or XML, and I'm mostly interested, I just want to get this for the rest of my program. I need it elsewhere, or I need just the 500 maybe. But what I was doing was I was taking this whole string and I was counting how many characters are this way, and then hard coding it to just cut off, 8 characters or whatever this is. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 characters one way, and then I would count the same way and cut off 13 this way, or I'm sorry, 15 I guess, because plus 1 from this. But it wasn't always that way. Sometimes it was 60 characters one way and 10 characters the other, and the code was just really unmanageable because you just see this huge list of numbers basically, and you don't know what that is even dealing with unless there's a really good comment. But the other problem is if there's any small change, like maybe the site starts saying today instead, it's just completely broken after that. And regex is a good way to get around some of those hard limitations of character trimming, as it were. So instead of doing it like that, regex lets you define different things. Down here in the right hand corner we've got a little list of tokens, I guess they're called, and these are kind of the pattern matching that you can do. So maybe I'll just jump in here and I want to grab a digit, or this is a non-digit actually. but why don't we just go like this? We'll just write it out. And that's kind of what we grabbed there. Depending on your programming language, this might be enough to get you that character into a variable, or however your regex function works. For me, and probably most languages or libraries, you're going to want to put what you want in parentheses. So in this case, we're mostly interested in this number part, and I guess that $sign is used. So I already get to talk about the escape delimiter, which is the backspace. I'll cover that maybe later as well in more detail, but so we mostly want those digits. So the token for digits is, if we look down here, any digit is a lowercase d. Now we've got basically the $sign and the 5 selected in our parentheses, and the site is really cool. It shows it over here. $5 basically. Well, that's not quite right. We want the rest of it. So we have two options. We can do a star, or we can do a plus. That basically just repeats it. If I can find it in here, I don't see it immediately. Maybe it's an all, or I don't know where exactly it is. It's probably quantifier. Yeah, there you go. 1 or more of something, and 0 or more. So the star is really good if you don't know for sure, like maybe it is $5 sometimes in that in that spot, or I'm sorry, 0 or more would be if it was possibly empty. So if there was an instance like this somehow the site was doing, then maybe you would want to do, let's get in there, something like that, and it still matches the $sign. But I don't think that probably wouldn't happen, I don't think. So usually I find myself using plus more often because I actually do want to match. But in case you don't, the star is there. Okay, so I'm just going to grab that end of that. And what you could probably, yeah, actually that is kind of how I would do it. I think most of that sounds familiar, because I definitely know that this is the thing that I want. Now, so yeah, that was kind of the first struggle that I had. Pretty basic usage there. I just threw this as a random example, but there's plenty of ways, I'm sure, to just cut off the extension, especially in some languages. But here, I guess my thinking for this example was to just cut off the .mp3. Ooh. Now we've got that dot there, so we need to use the delimiter. The delimiter, since I'm kind of covering the basics here, is, take this next input exactly as it appears. So normally plus is used, like we said, in other places, but here we want to use it as the actual dot character. So we need to say, don't do what you normally do, just do the dot explicitly. And then everything else I will just do, let's put in parentheses first. So this dot is one way to kind of get yourself in trouble, but I'll cover that later in the next example. But here, the dot is good because we have digits, we have a symbol, and we have characters. And probably that's an odd name for an MP3 file, but if you tried to do digits or non-digits, that wouldn't quite work. If you just did words, you're only going to grab the text, and maybe that's what you want, but in this case we probably want the whole thing, I would think. So that would probably be the best way to do it there. Dot is basically any single character. So it's basically one of anything. I mean, it could be a space or anything like that. Actually, while we're on this example, let's look at some other, just one other thing I want to mention. You can do some more, maybe you don't want to match the number 9 in some cases. Let's also do A through Z, and let's do a plus on here. So what's going on here is I'm saying do the numbers 1, 2, 3, 9, a space, a lowercase a through z. Most regex is going to be smart enough to understand you want a through z. I've never actually experimented with doing like a through j or something, but I imagine it. Let's try x. Yeah, that does work. Okay, cool. That's cool. Because we have an x here. It's still not matching this part though, because we haven't mentioned it in here. These brackets kind of let you define your own rule. Down here is kind of where it's explaining that. So that's something useful. I've used that in a few instances, but it's a good thing to keep in your back pocket if you've got a weird situation. I think in mine I wanted like dollars, cents, British pounds, but not yen or anything else. So that's kind of where you can use that. Okay. One other problem that I have run into before is, I think I put no, I didn't put that on my clipboard. One other problem I've run into before is not being clear enough or not being specific enough. In one case, I was crawling a website like Craigslist or something, and I wanted to grab some text inside parentheses. Now, since parentheses is normally used for regex, we'll have to escape it with this. So let's just grab everything inside there. And you already kind of see the problem, but let's see. Yeah, it was more like this. No, it's not quite working. Oh, okay. Well, my specific case was I was going like this. And why is that not ending? Oh, I know. Is this? Okay. Okay, so I was grabbing in between two parentheses, which I've stated explicitly, grab everything, and I needed the normal green parentheses in that case for this. And so I got what I wanted, and most of the times I was working fine. But one day, the PDF was a little bit different. It went like this. I grabbed way too much stuff, because why? This is saying grab anything that is not a digit, if you can see that text right there. Anything, any non-digit. Well, F is not a digit, and because I was mostly wanting just text in there. R is not a digit. E is not a digit. Exclamation point, well, that's not a digit. And, you know, in our human brain, we're kind of thinking, well, anything that is not a digit is probably a character, right? Well, here's where I kind of got in trouble, is I was grabbing this exclamation point. Is what, well, anyways. But I didn't really, I guess in my real example it wasn't. I didn't actually have it. I was just thinking, okay, well, anything not a digit is basically text. Well, I didn't take into account that parentheses are also not digits. Spaces are not digits. And it grabbed all this other crap that I didn't need. But if I had done something like a word, or even A through Z, and capital A through capital Z, which is something you might need to do, then that probably would have worked better. I don't know why it's not right now. A through Z. Oh, I see why. I've accidentally got an extra one of those in there. Okay. If I had done something more like this, I would have never had the risk of hitting an outside stuff, because all of this is, well, that's not A through, or I'm sorry, that is A through Z. This is not A through Z. This parentheses is not A through Z. So be explicit where you can that using the any character is a good way that I get myself in trouble. So try to not use that dot, even though it kind of makes things easier. You can get in trouble with it. One other thing I just want to mention in this introduction to RegEx is user input. Sometimes I have users define everything they want in a file, because I can't, have them be typing it out every time, and modifying a JSON file when they need to make a change wouldn't be very useful. So I just have a text file that users kind of get. They can see, oh, okay, system name, blah, 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 type, blah, blah, blah. I mean, let me put a little more spaces in here. And I think it's common for us to be cycling through a text file or something like that. And so RegEx can be nice for grabbing all those pieces of information just really easily. You can say, just grab anything in here. Well, that's gonna get us in trouble, so we'll just say, whoops, word. Well, I guess we'll have to do, actually, what we can do is we can do any, what is it, S? Yeah, there we go. Which is what? White space? Yes. Okay. So this is one really good way where you can loop through a file and you can be reasonably certain that the user would put everything on one line and not, break it out by entering certain things like that. Whoop. That was a little bit too much. So that's one really easy way to grab everything we need. So now we have the system name on the same line. We can cycle it through, grab the type, grab the hard drive space, things like that. So that is the last example I just wanted to give real quickly as far as making it useful immediately. Alright, thank you very much. My name's Chunji. This site is really awesome. I encourage you to throw them a donation. It feels awesome to be supporting this useful software. I use it all the time. I've definitely got more than, $20 value. I mean, I can't tell you how many hours this must have saved me. Anyways, check it out. Thanks.